evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Thursday. Hi, Carol. How are you today?
Hi, Deborah. I am doing wonderful.
Great. I could not wait to get back here to our coffee chat. I
I
love
know.
it.
Absolutely. I always look so forward to having our coffee together and
Yes.
just having some conversation, right?
Yes. Well, I believe it is better to train early rather than to fix later. So, here at Build Your Best Life, we are here and we are focusing on our young men. We want to see them thrive and do better. And we know that they can overcome obstacles and build their best lives. So, Carol and I, every time we come, we try to bring out some great tidbits for our young men that they can use in order to build their best lives. Well, we thought it would be great today if we're always talking about this book, and this book includes basic principles that will assist all our young men in building their best lives. I mean, you got to have something to go by. Basic principles never change. The world changes, people change, uh, technology changes, but basic principles, just like biblical principles, never change.
Mhm.
And so it's important that you have a tool to use in order to think about, what happened in my past. I can get over that and I can be that entrepreneur that I want to be. I can be that electrician that I want to be. I can be that author I want to be. I can be that scientist that I want to be. Whatever it is that I want to be, and God has put that purpose in my life, I can do it.
Mhm.
So we use this book, but we don't talk about the back of the book, and there are some very helpful tidbits that are in the back of the book. So Carol and I today are going to talk about one of those things, and it's the personal planning program. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and it's very essential before you get into that program. I always talk about you need to love yourself first and foremost. Well,
Mhm.
before you go on a trip, there are certain things that you need to know. How you're going to travel, what's the weather going to be like, what you plan to do while you're there, what are you going to do when you get back, who's picking you up if you're flying or whatever. So there are things that you need to think about before your coach, which would be myself or one of the other coaches, get with you and discuss how we can help you to make your life better. We need to have some answers to some things to make sure that you're on board and we know where we need to start. So that's what we're going to be doing this evening. So I know there are hundreds of you out there with the book, so please like, share, get on there, share, let people know, hey, we're going to be working in this book today. You need to get on here. So please share at this time. What you got, Kara? What you got?
Well, sis, honestly, you talked about packing up and getting ready to go on a trip. But the basic principle to me is before we can even start well, you might plan where you want to go and those kind of things, but you gotta pack some basic necessities, right? And put in that suitcase. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. You talked about principles and some basic principles that you have to take and begin to do as far as planning. I don't believe it. I believe that what is that we say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right.
So that's what we want to talk to everyone tonight about. Taking it personal and plan and having something like you said in the book. You've gotten some things to kind of stir up the thinking, stir up some ideas in order for our young men to start thinking about how they can plan to be able to build their best life. And like you said, we need to go back to the book, but just the idea of even if you've gone through the book, absolutely all of the knowledge that you've gotten, now you need to put down some basic planning steps as to what you're going to do to get started. Because sometimes, Deborah, don't you think the hardest thing to do is to get started. Just
Yes,
being able to
definitely.
get started. So that's what we want to do. We want to stir up the start button for them because you've given so many great principles. But when do we get started? Right?
All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
When do we get started? And you had a scripture you're gonna
Yeah.
read
Okay.
for us.
I'm sorry. Let me share that because I thought that was really a great. And so, well, let me just go ahead. It says, to build your best life, you need to take the first step. The following question will assist you as you plan to make that. And I love that you use the word leap, okay, to make that first step, but to make that leap because we're trying to get somewhere and get over something, get from one place to another. But you use the scripture Psalms 20 and verse 4 from the Good News translation. I love that translation. And it says, may he give you what you desire and make all your plans succeed. May he give you what you desire and all your plans to succeed. So, like I said, we come to stir you up. We stir up some of those things that you looked at in the book. We want to stir those up and make you get to a point, encourage you to get to a point that you are now ready to plan, put it on paper, journal it down, and leap so you can have your best life.
Right. So if you do have your books, you Build Your Best Life book, we are going to be on page 101. So you can follow along in your book if you would like. And if you don't have that book, you can go to my website, www.buildyourbestlife.org, and order your copy, and you will get it quickly. You get your autographed copy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we just this personal planning program. So we want to get you started so you can take that leap. So the first thing it asks you is, what do you feel is your number one asset? Well, that's important because you need to know, what is your strength. What did God give you when he was giving out gifts and talents? What did he give you? Because a lot of times where people run into issues and problems is because they are looking at someone else's gifts, what they're good at. So they want to take that and you want to try to run with it. But God made us all individually. He gave us a purpose in our lives. And if he gave you a purpose, he also gave you the tools that you need to be successful. So you need to figure out, what are your strengths?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why you need to know your strengths is because I mentioned earlier that things are always changing. You don't want to just say, well, I'm good at problem solving, but you learn to problem solve this way. And they have new techniques and they found out a new method or new thought process, but you only doing what you knew years back. You're not willing to change. Well, if you've been strong in problem solving, you want to remain strong in problem solving because that's what people know you by.
Mm-hmm.
I got this problem and I just been thinking and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm overthinking or whatever, but you know what? Carol is a good problem solver. She stops and she thinks about, okay, what is it that you're asking? What is you trying to get as the end result? And she's going to be good at that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call her. But if Carol decides that she's not going to stay abreast of always being strong in that area, and I might call her one day and she's like, I can't help you, sis. So you got to stay up to par.
Mm-hmm.
If there's, and problem solving may not have been a good excuse me, a good example, but just like you're an underwriter, you might be an underwriter. They changed the trends because of inflation and all of that. Your trends change. Well, if you want to be a good underwriter, make sure that you're giving out the right rates. turning down the right groups and getting in the right groups. You got to stay on top of all of the information that a good underwriter needs to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to stay abreast of those things. So you want to make sure that you keep those strengths up to par. What does that take? Does that take taking an additional course sometimes? Does it take reading a book? Is it going to different classes or sitting down with someone that does what you do, but they're at a higher level? They may be able to assist you. So whatever you need to do to keep up with new advances, policies, and procedures, that's what you want to do to make sure that your asset remains an asset.
Mm-hmm. And not a liability, right?
Right. Yeah.
Not a liability.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
you get out there and start giving out the wrong information,
Mm-hmm.
you're in trouble. That's just like a CPA. That's a good one because you have a CPA and he's been advising you, and then the laws change where he don't
Mm-hmm.
keep and the law makes sure that they stay up to par. But
Mm-hmm.
just say that the law didn't make them, and your CPA wasn't going to getting those trainings and when they need to, and making sure that they up to par, and they forget to tell you that a law change, you file your income taxes, they come bouncing back, and you owe $10,000. You'd be upset.
Completely
So
upset.
yes. So yeah, that's how that it can be a
Mhm.
liability.
And even Deborah, also, from the CPA and the problem solver, I'm an athlete mom. So I always think about that because I'm a football mom. So every level of playing football requires you to acquire another level of skill. And so basically you can't stay at your Pop Warner football team and think you're going to be in the NFL. It won't work. So you got to remember, you got to keep yourself in a place where you're continuing to grow, you're continuing to develop your skill, and not just let them, sit there, because that will also prove how well, or how you really want to accomplish that, because that means you'd have to put forth some work. You talked about going back to school, getting a book, letting a mentor help you. All of those things are things that they would have to do for themselves, and that takes you looking at the responsibility. But also, I think it makes that person understand your, like you say, your strength. You want to keep getting them strong, but you want to take responsibility for your own way of growing, and not just finding ways to say they ought. I learned Pop Warner, so I'm just going, and they ought to take me in the NFL because I know I'm good at Pop Warner. No, you have to stay relevant, and you
That's
have to make sure that you stay. You, like you said, you have to make sure that you stay an asset and not become a liability.
That's right. Yeah, and that's a good analogy with the football.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So number two says, do you have any issues that cause you anxiety or cause you to dread taking the next rational steps in life? So we're talking about being successful, building your best life. Well, if there's something that you're afraid of that's going to cause you to hesitate to go forward, then you definitely need to identify what that is, because it can hold you back. We're saying you got to overcome obstacles and build your best life. But if it's something that's really giving you anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
or you just, I just can't, I can't, then that could be detrimental to you, your future, and even now, and that anxiety could get worse because that could, cause low self-esteem. It
Mm-hmm.
could get you with having problems with your mental health or whatever. So you need to identify what is it, well, I just get nervous when I stand up in front of people. I just begin to sweat. my palms start sweating, and sweat pours down my face, and I'm like the deer in the headlight. I know what it is that I want to say. I have all this information. It's not that I don't, but I just can't. Okay, so you need to identify that so you can get help with that. And so I just off the cuff a couple ways that you may be able to get rid of that problem. They used to always say, well, if you get nervous, and this is funny, but they used to say years ago, if you're nervous talking in a group of people, just look at the back wall and pretend that there's somebody back there and they don't have any clothes on. So that's just hilarious. It's not on you, it's on them, because they need to cover up. And so you just go ahead and talk.
That's a good one.
Or you may need to take something like Toastmasters. Toastmasters can help you kind of overcome being in that crowd, because when you get in Toastmasters, you get to get up and give those speeches in front of the group, and then they'll tell you, what you did that was great, what you can improve on. They'll also tell you about those, what we call them, elevator speeches, where you get on an elevator with someone and, people have a tendency to hold their heads down. But what if that is someone that you are dying to work in their department and you only got that right on the elevator to say something to them? You got to be quick.
Yeah.
So that is how knowing that information, writing it down so you can get with your coach will help you. Do you have anything on that, Carol?
Yeah, I was going to add that I just love the fact that you said you must identify that very thing that could, that anxiety, that crippling thing that's going to, and sometimes we're reluctant to looking a little bit deeper to see what is it, and even to note it. What is it that when this happened, why am I standing here full of fear, full of doubt, all of those things? So I kind of say, you have to acknowledge it. You have to admit it in order to be able to quit it, because you never will get to the place that you can quit something if you are not ready to face it and be able to identify what that very thing is. Because Deborah, yours may not look like mine, but we both still have some things that we need to sit down and identify, because if not, that is one way we could stay stuck and never, and you could be growing in your body, but your mind is still stuck in that very thing that you haven't identified.
That's right.
Like I had to identify Deborah going on a cruise. But I knew what it was. And like I said, that was on my bucket list. I did it one time, so I'm good. But
one was enough. One time was enough.
One time was enough. So I did go one time. And then after I had gone, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. Do you see how small these rooms are? Do you see all this tunneling down the ship? So that's my own issue, but I had to identify it so I can just gracefully say, no, not this time. So,
oh, that's great. We still trying to change our mind, though.
I know y'all are, and I done got all the scriptures on the spirit of fear and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, y'all, but there's such a thing that you can gracefully say, no, not now. I'll fly over there if you're gonna stop again. So yeah.
All right. Number 3, why do you feel uncomfortable talking to about? Who do you feel comfortable talking to about any subject? You have to be. Some people will keep things inside, and that's not good. So it has to be someone that you feel comfortable with. And even as children growing up, they're not always comfortable talking to their parents. They may have a parent that's a yeller. I know when I was a young parent, I was a yeller. So my son, he probably like, I don't go ask her nothing, and she might start yelling, So a parent you might not even feel comfortable, but you have to find someone that you're comfortable with and you can talk about anything with them. Because when we keep things inside, that can cause additional problems. And actually, when you talk to other people and you let those things out, it helps you. Because a lot of times we're holding things in our hearts and we need to let it go. So like unforgiveness, that can cause you issues. Sometimes people walk around, oh, I got headaches. I don't know why I always have headaches. But what do you have going on inside in your heart? Are you holding things against somebody that they did to you 5 years ago and they don't even realize that they did it? You might have taken it the wrong way, but they offended you or hurt you. You never said anything to them. You just stopped talking to them, but you still feel like they hurt you. If you don't get rid of that or tell somebody, because they may say, well, are you sure that's what they meant by that? That you should have taken an opportunity to speak with them. But, you need to pray and let that unforgiveness go.
Because Deborah, and you're absolutely right. You have to get to the place where you have somebody to talk to, because I say sometimes silence can be an ultimate killer if you don't get to some place where you can voice what's going on the inside. And sometimes we're very good at masking, looking good on the outside, but you are slowly dying on the inside because it, like you say, unforgiveness is a bitter root, and it will cause all kind of health issues, all kind of mental issues if we don't, go ahead and begin to look at that. But having an opportunity to, to search your heart, because it's your heart, but also having that someone that you feel comfortable enough to voice where you are. And that takes you I believe it takes trusting. You got to trust somebody. You just can't live in this world without trusting. I think Coach tells us all the time too, whatever you feed will continue to grow. If I feed fear, if I feed doubt, if I feel insecurities, all of those will continue to grow. And so the earlier our young men began to, because sometimes I think that we as a society have told our young men that they shouldn't be emotional. They shouldn't have any, but I don't know if you heard it. Boys don't cry. Well, why not? Because they have they have feelings, they have emotions so to our young men, don't be afraid to express how you feel. And if you got to cry sometime, go ahead and cry, because that's okay, because our tears are, he said he bottles up our tears, but they can be a healthy way of releasing that's inside of us. But you have to begin to deal with those internal issues. And I love what you said. Counseling is a great thing. And sometimes, like you said, you can't talk to your parents. Sometimes you can't talk to anybody that's closely related to you. But if, go to a therapist, because one thing about it, they don't really know you, but they want to get to know you. And the way they get to know you is by simply asking you those hard questions that you might have suppressed over years.
That's right. Yes. And it's also important for you to write it down here, because then when your coach sees that, then they can also explain to you. Now, you don't want to talk to your parents, but I'm sure if your parents are working on a job and they have benefits, most employers now offer employee assistance program or whatever, but that's where they have free counseling services. And that counselor will allow you to come and talk with them in confidence. The only time that they will share is if you appear to be a danger to yourself or someone else. That you will have to share with them. But otherwise, you can have a confidential conversation and get all of that out.
Absolutely. Well, Deborah, this is some great information, and I love the fact that we're reminding our young men and young women to, have a personal plan. And you've given them in this book, you've given them some things to get started, because sometimes it does take someone asking you a question for you to be able to write it down. And so
Right.
this is, like we say, this book is such a great tool to begin to help. And then even if you have to go to a counselor, if you spend some time, and if you don't have a book, you can spend some time writing it down. So when you go, you can even let them read your thoughts that you've written on paper, and that's a good way to begin to express. And even sometime in writing that down, if that tear fall, let that tear fall down right then, because the ultimate thing is you want to become free of some of those things that's internally affecting you and keeping you from having your very best life.
That's right.
Well, anyway, Deborah, I just thought about another point you made in the book, and it is, once again, these are all thought-provoking questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you really talk a lot about setting goals and being specific about your goals, having a timeline. And I think when we start thinking about goals, sometimes we want to write up 100 goals, you know,
Right.
and no, we cannot accomplish those. So let's be realistic and begin to write some things down. And a good question is, where will you see yourself in 5 years? What is it that is on your list of
Mhm.
things that you want to accomplish? If you're in middle school, for those years, you want to get to a place you're going to finish high school, right? And then if you're a senior, part of it may not be in 5 years, but in that same realm, you're going to have, if you're going to be a college person or you're going to go to a trade school, but you've got to start thinking outside of where you are today, because if you live 5 more years, you need to have a plan. What is it that you want to do? What goals are you going to set? And I've learned this, that when you set a goal, you need to put an action under that goal. What are you going to do to accomplish that? Because like I said, I've been so guilty of writing 100 goals out, but no action plan. And so they just become written on paper. Deborah, I don't even know if they was written on my heart. They were just written on paper. Written on paper, and you look back and you haven't done any of them. But
Right.
yeah, let's encourage them. We want to encourage you to take that leap, sit down and think about where you are today and where you want to be in 5 years. And we certainly don't want to look back in 5 years when you got to those 5 years and look back and see you haven't done anything that you would like to accomplish, or that you even thought about and you haven't accomplished those. Now that, to me, that would just be like having, I just keep going back to the body, having a first grader, and now we're trying to fit him in a 12th grade body, or vice versa. No,
Right.
we got to have some goals, and we need to set some goals. You want to add something to that, Deborah?
Yeah, and just like Carol was saying, you got to be specific about those things. So
Mm-hmm.
you saying these are the things I want to see in 5 years. Make sure that that makes sense, that you can accomplish those things
Mm-hmm.
in that 5 year period.
Mm-hmm.
And another important thing she said is you don't just write them down. You got to put some work to it. You got to get started on those things.
Mm-hmm.
And you want in 5 years, I want to be working on my master's degree. So you in high school and you say in 5 years I want to be working on my master's degree. So you still got to finish your 12th grade year. Normally it takes you 4 years to complete college before you can go into that graduate degree. So you got to be on it. So are you that type of person that's going to want to study
Mm-hmm.
and not go off to college and want to be in a lot of different activities? Because if you're in a lot of activities, you're probably not going to take as many courses.
Mm-hmm.
So is that 5 years? Is that really realistic for you? So when you write down your goals, you don't just jot things down, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Really think them out. We're talking about that problem solving, that critical thinking. Think them out. Think, does this, we talk about the SMART goals.
Mm-hmm.
Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic or relevant? And is it time based? So you want to do that.
Mm-hmm. And Deborah, also, even to add to that, when you written those goals down and you go back and I love writing them down because that is your record of what you put down. But I love the fact that when you accomplish those things, you can check them off. But that's a place that you can celebrate what you've accomplished, because all of us love to be celebrated, right?
That's right.
What's wrong with celebrating yourself when you've accomplished those things? Because that's huge. Pat yourself. You got to encourage yourself in the Lord. Because sometimes everybody does not celebrate us, but that's okay. But if you can write your things down, know that they've been realistic, know that you had some time frames on that, and you can go back and look and see that you can check those things off as completed. Celebrate your accomplishment, because it's okay. It's my grandma used to say, sometimes you can shake your own bush, and it's okay. Shake your bush, because if you've accomplished those, and you did the work and you sacrificed the time, why not celebrate yourself?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, also we got the 5 year and the 5 year looking forward into the next 5 years. And I love, putting them in increments of 5, because those are, attainable. But then one thing, and that goes into what I talked about celebration. So I think you have to be able to look at your life now and see what you are not proud of. Look at what you're not proud of, because I believe when we begin to look at what we're not proud of, you can begin to know that you can change something. You don't have to, if it's something you're not proud of, you don't have to stay stuck in that moment or that during that era that you were not proud of it. I always think, if I'm not proud of it and I did it, what can I learn from that? Because if we are not proud of something, we continue to do the same thing, continue to make the same mistake. I think they say that's a little bit insanity going on. And that's not where we want to be. So look and see, what is it? And once again, you got a place you can write it down. This book can be like your personal diary. Write those things down, because you want to be able to look back and reflect back over the things that you are not proud of, and begin to look at those, because if you can change that, and if you can, you should, and you can take that thing that you're not proud of and then learn some things from that, and it may roll around again, but you'll have a plan as to how you're going to handle that. So that can be one you can take out of the not proud and put it over in the category of some things that you've learned and you can be proud of.
That's right.
All right. You got anything there, Deborah?
I was trying to think, and one thing, and it could be something that's really, really simple, because I know, and it was just a habit I always had, and I'm anemic, and so I'm usually cold, but I had a habit. I would sit in a meeting like this, but it was not because I was bored or anything. I was just probably cold, but it took someone to say to me, when you sit like that, people think that you're not interested in what they're talking about in the meeting, or you are bored, or you don't want to be there. So, I would, try to stop doing that. But if no one had ever said anything, I would just continue to do that. But, sometimes we do things because we don't know. But when somebody points it out, then you want to keep that in your front of your mind so you can work on it.
Right. Because we don't, our body sends such a message, right? And like you said, and we've done that for so long that we don't think anything's wrong with it. But I love what you said when somebody pointed that out. And that's one thing I think we want our young men to know. Don't always discredit or discount, constructive things that people say to you because maybe you don't like the messenger, or you at that moment you don't, we're good at saying, I don't know, I don't think that's me, I ain't, no, that ain't me. But if they said it to you, it's worth you looking at it to see if it is true. And if it is true and that's not the message you want to send out, then you want to make sure that you're going to do something to change that, because everything we do has some effect on where we're going to go and what we're, what our lives are becoming. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, are you an introvert or an extrovert? So I think I think being able to recognize that, but I think in both of those, I believe that if you're an introvert and that introvert is keeping you from socializing and having relationships that could be very beneficial to you, then that introvert kind of person, I mean, I just believe that we're not built to be alone, are built to not have any kind of communications with other people. And so if you're an introvert, sometimes you can put yourself in a place where you isolated yourself from people. And just thinking we isolate from people, we might be missing some connections that's going to help you. You might be missing some wisdom because you've decided that you're going to be isolated. But I also think that being an extrovert is a good thing as well. I mean, it's good in a sense, but I think they both have some parameters that we have to take a look at, because but an extrovert person probably will go out, communicate, make something happen. So if we're going to build our best life, I think the introvert needs to look at some of the things the extrovert is doing. But now, if you're such an extrovert and you are, every time somebody see you, you're so loud and boisterous and calling a whole bunch of attention to yourself, then I think sometimes you could back off and learn something from the introvert person as well.
Yeah. And I've seen, because I'm more introvert, but
Mm-hmm.
where it can, where I've seen that it can be a disadvantage or a big disadvantage. Like if I'm in a group,
Mm-hmm.
I'm better at it now. But when I was working, if I was in a group and people were
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
it was like I was the one that was polite, and I was gonna wait until somebody take a breath, or I could get something, get a word in. I wasn't gonna interrupt, but that extrovert, they're gonna make themselves heard. They're gonna take over that conversation. They're gonna say what they
Mm-hmm.
gotta say. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and you sitting there going, but you can't do that. You have some thoughts as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to, okay, I'm gonna do this. You gotta tell yourself, okay, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting that you're saying, but have you ever thought about,
Right.
so you have to give yourself that push, even if you got to give yourself that pep talk. Go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and do it.
Mm-hmm. Because that very one thing that you didn't say could be somebody else was thinking the same thing and didn't say it, but how it could help someone else. So I don't know. I just think about it as sometimes that fear will suppress our voice, because for me, that people pleasing personality, you want to make, you're sitting there going through like, okay, am I going to use the ain't or aren't or all those verb, all those things that you correct English and things like that. So, but the message that you have, or or the idea that you had, if you don't say it, sometimes that's going to, that could make the whole team uh basically fail it, because you had the right answer, you had the answer, you had the idea, and didn't share it. And like you said, but the extrovert is like that. They gonna make sure you see them, hear them, and they may, like you say, push you physically out of the way, or just mentally, or with words push you out of the way. So we want to make sure. Like I said, I think we can learn something from both of them, because I believe sometimes the extrovert need to know how to be quiet a little bit, so it wouldn't hurt, to be able to be sensible and sensitive to both sides. Yeah.
Right.
All righty.
All right. Number 7, do you like yourself? And that may sound strange. Why would you even ask that? Because there are many people who don't like themselves. I'm sorry, but it's so true. And they don't like themselves. It may be that person that you see that they never get along with anybody. They stay to themselves. They never want to talk about their past. You can't move forward or change until you identify why you don't like yourself and make changes. So you see that person and they are always just so mean. You're like, why are they always so mean, so abrupt? What they never say anything nice. It's because they really don't like themselves, and they can't take it out on themselves, so they're gonna take it out on other people. So if you really don't like yourself, and if you don't, someone might have said something about a feature on your face as you were coming up, and you've kept that inside, or they may have said something about you may have a birthmark or something. It might be something physical, but it might be something inside, and you just don't like yourself. But you need to identify that, because if you don't like yourself, then do you really want to build your best life? Do you want to be better, or do you want to stay where you are? That's a good question.
It's a great question.
Why don't you like yourself? Because everyone should love themselves. God would not have created you if he didn't love you. He made you uniquely, one of a kind. He gave you a purpose in life, just like he gave everybody else. He's given you gifts and talents, just like he's given anybody else. And you are somebody. You need to find out, what is it about yourself that you don't like? Is it something that you can change, or is it just a pain that's inside you? But you need to, get that up and out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you ask, do we like ourselves, and do they like themselves? Because what did it say? It's hard to love anybody if you don't love yourself. So you got to figure out, why is it, if you don't like yourself, why is it that you do not like you? Because like you say, you've been beautifully and wonderfully made in the image of God. This is my favorite one, Deborah. I just look and I just say, God, you did not create no junk when you created me.
Right.
You're not junk. Yeah, you're not junk. And so, and I think the worst thing we can do when we start looking at whether we like ourselves or not is when we start comparing ourselves to other people. God gave us all these different body structures and different features and things like that. But I think we diminish God's creation when we start picking out things that we don't like about us, our own self, and start comparing ourselves to someone else, because he made them how he intended to. He made you. So I believe we have to learn how to appreciate the Creator's creation when he made each one of us.
That's right. It's good. All right. Number 8. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? So we talked about 5 years. And so that 5 years, I would say that was probably a short-term goal. But then you also need long-term goals, depending on when you are filling this out. Are you in high school? Are you a teenager? Are you a young adult? So in 10 years, do you see yourself in the workforce? Do you see yourself buying your first home? Whatever. So if you are in school now, in high school, let's say, and you're planning on attending college, And you so after you get out of college, you may have a little student debt. We hope you don't have any or much. And so then you want to find your a good job, and you
Mhm,
want to
mhm,
save. So in your long-term goals, if that's like purchasing a home, that's a process. So you don't just jump up one day and say, oh, yep, I'm gonna buy a house.
mhm,
So you need to do research, you need to save
mhm,
money, you need to make sure you got a good credit score and all of that.
mhm, mhm,
So it's important where you want to see yourself in 10 years. So do you have a goal, something on your bucket list?
mm,
I want to visit every state in the United States. Okay. Can you think you can do that in 10 years? That might be in that, where you see yourself in 10 years. I've visited 25 states in within 10 years, or I visited 30 states or whatever. But what do you see as what do you see yourself in 10 years? Do you see
mhm.
yourself, entry level job? Do you see yourself in management? Do you see yourself in senior management? What are the things that you see?
Mhm.
So if you don't write it down and make it plain and work on it, it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
So that is why that question is there, because it's important.
Absolutely. Like you said, write it down, make the vision plain so you can see it and then you can run with it, right? So
Right.
you're absolutely right. You gotta, that's a long-term goal, but you still, have to be able to put an action to whatever your goal is so that you know what you're going to do. If you're buying that house, there's some action things. You got to have some down payment. You got to have some credit checks. You got to have you listen, my brother-in-law told me one day, he said, when you're buying a house, he said, you're just not buying land, but you're buying a community. You're buying the whole neighborhood and all of that, because all of that is important. And so even when you're thinking about buying a house, planning where it is, what kind of environment you want, where,
Right.
all of those are so important. And I don't know about you, but some of that I never thought about. Let me just go down here and see, and then you got to plan your credit, because you got to be pre-qualified now. So it's a lot of things that you have to put in place. And then you talk about this too, Deborah, about in the book, even if you got that long-term goal, your credit and your credibility is huge as you begin to build your best life. And those your integrity and all those things are so important. And you want to make sure you're planning that you are keeping those things in the right place. Your reputation, all of that
Yes.
affects a lot of things in your 10-year goal. You don't want to plan, like you say, to go to college and you mess up, and like you talked about those mistakes that they can make, and just one mistake can create a lifetime of things that's going to hurt you. So I know I'm not quoting it exactly the way you did, but that is something that we have to make sure that we're considering, even in making that plan.
That's
You got to
right.
make sure you keeping those things intact. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, all right then. And then Deborah, what is it? Everyone needs a role model, right? And
Yes.
it's very important to identify that role model that you look up to, gives you an opportunity to look at and to look at and kind of look at their life and be able to see some things that they did that may encourage you to want to move forward, or encourage you to want to go down that same track. But I guess the word I'm looking for is being able to track those things that you have this role model for. And that role model is somebody that not only you're looking up to them, but you're able to receive advice from them. You're able to be able to help get, when they give you constructive criticism, that you're able to receive, because if they're your role model, and sometimes role models may not be where we can touch them be with them, but they can be people that you can track their lives and be able to see the things that they've done. But even
Right.
if you got one that's close to you, you want that role model to be somebody that you can look up to, but you can respect and receive from them.
Right.
All right. Anything to add on that
Nope.
one? Okay. Well, listen, we know that we know that we're in, is it Generation X or Z? Which one? Well, I don't know. But anyway, we know that the generations do change and things, and listen, life is full of things, and it's, changes are going to occur. And so we want to make sure that we are moving with the change. And so with that being said, there are some things that this generation that makes them stand out. You know, if nothing else, technology makes them stand out, because these little bitty 2-year-olds can take your phone and do whatever they
Yes,
want.
they can.
They can
Oh,
tell you about that phone. And so this is a generation that's full of technology. And one thing I do like about this generation, they are very, very articulate. They
mhm.
are very, very opinionated and don't have a problem telling you what they think. But I love that. And like I said, the things that stand out to me with them is that their ability to express, their what they think, what they feel, if they are that extrovert kind of person. But that technology would be one that stands out, and I think that makes them very unique in what they're doing, because they, like I said, they Snapchat, TikTok, and all that stuff. And so I think I can't get my what's that one? Uh Sometimes I can't even get the Facebook together. Let me be for real. I was thinking about Instagram and I was like, be for real. And sometimes it's that Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's so
all up.
funny. My niece, somebody had sent me something through Messenger, and it was a little flyer, and I wanted to keep it. I could not figure out for the world how to keep that and download it so I can have it on my phone. So I just sent it to her in Messenger, and I said, Kara, can you send me this back on my phone so I can be able to download it and have it, so when I want to do an invite for people, they can see what I'm talking about. Before I could really finish texting her, she'd already sent it back. So that is the unique thing I think about this generation.
Yeah. Yeah, these generations, they are, uh, like you say, most of them are tech savvy. They're really into that.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want to point out about our generations too,
Mm-hmm.
and this will really help our parents and
Okay.
educators and everybody out there, you know, with the baby boomers and ones that came after that,
Mm-hmm.
our parents would tell us, this is what you're going to do. We didn't question it, we did it. The generations now, the millennials, the X's, the Z's, they do by what they see, your actions. So you
Mm-hmm.
can tell them whatever you want. They may stand there and be respectful and listen to you, but they are going to watch your actions and they are going to do what they see you do.
Wow.
So we have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's that influence. And like you said, and I believe this generation, not only in technology, I believe they want transparency from us as
Yes.
well. They are big on transparency. Like you said, you can't, they're gonna look at what you do, and they gonna hear what you say. So we have to be we're gonna influence this next generation. I think we, as you say, baby boomers and those underneath that, we've got to be willing to be very, very transparent. And my favorite word is, don't always judge, just be hard in judging them. And I don't know about, but our favorite thing, girl, this is how we used to do it. Well, that's not going to always work with them anymore.
Yep.
Not at all. Not at all. Well,
Yes.
sister, we've had some great coffee, And we've had some great conversation, don't you think?
Yes, we have.
I always love
Yeah,
it
wonderful.
when we can get together. But just in closing, I just want to encourage them, and I don't think we hit this very much, but every one of you have a gift and have a talent. You got a talent. You may have to develop that even more so and put some work to it, but that's your talent. Go ahead and do that. That's your strength. Focus on those things that you have strength in, and then you can always come back and work on the weakness, but make that strength your strength. Make it an asset in your life. And then to find you a role model, and don't be afraid to look for that role model. And of course, I know you're going to say that, Deborah, set your goals, stick to your goals. You may have to adjust the goals, but you need to make sure that you know where you want to be, 5 years or 10 years, but write it down. Miss Deborah, you got the book. As something to me about right. I know they're technology driven, but when you write it down, I think you're putting it in your own words. It's helping you to see it and remember it and say it. And then you got something that you can go back and look, and don't hesitate to celebrate your accomplishments that you've made.
That's right. Great
Oh,
conversation. Great conversation.
absolutely.
Yeah. And you also, uh, Carol said about being transparent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have to have those candid conversations with our young people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go tell them, somebody said it the other day about no birds and the bees. You tell them
You know,
about sex, what that means. You not know no birds and no bees.
you don't know nothing about that. Not from that one.
Nope.
Yeah. And I love that, Deborah, I'm just going to keep getting back to the book. In your book, that's what I see that you do so well. If it's a spade, you believe you need to call it a spade, because like we can't start telling kids, oh, this baby came from the stork and the stork came down and dropped no. We got to be realistic. We got to be able to tell them, like you say, talk about, ain't no birds and bees, talk about what they need to talk, because that could help prevent
That's
a
right.
whole bunch of babies and baby mamas that you didn't intend to have. And don't you know that when you become a young parent and you're still young yourself, then that to me is not helping you build your best life, because now you're young, but you got some adult responsibilities. And to me, I love that you bring that out so clearly in your book, that we've got, as parents, we got to be transparent and have those hard conversations. Hard, Deborah, hard
Hard
conversations.
conversations. You are right.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Carol, tell us and let everybody know where they can find you and what you're up to these days.
Well, I am still working, trying to work on my Facebook page a little bit with Carol Crockett with the Power of Words. I am here on this show at least twice every quarter with Chuck's Earls and Pearls, correct? And then I have the privilege of teaching and teaching on my church page, Pathway of Life, on Mondays and Wednesday nights. Not Monday or Wednesday night. You can find me there. And on the third Monday night, you can find me with my coach having a conversation with him on Monday night, along with Miss Deborah, who also helps on those Monday nights. So thank you for letting me share, Deborah. And I look forward to always having our conversation and you allowing me to share. My heart is the power of words. And I just believe that, what we speak today, we can see the result of it tomorrow. So I shouldn't put in the atmosphere anything that I don't want to see become shaped into my life or part of my life. Words are powerful, and we have to be reminded constantly that we don't want to say anything that we're going to live to regret tomorrow or the next day.
That's right. So check my sister out. The power of words.
Power of those words.
Yes. And thank you again so much for tuning in to Build Your Best Life. We appreciate you being here because you could have been anywhere else. So please visit our website. You can read the blog that comes out on Mondays, see our calendar of events. We got a great event coming up next week. Our Blessed and Grateful Conference starts Monday the 14th. We're going to have Della Major on Monday night. And on Tuesday night, we're going to have Pastor Patrick Johnson. On Wednesday, we're going to have Miss Brady Robinson. Mm-hmm. And on Thursday night, we're going to have Coach Ricardo Miller. So please join us on all of those nights. So one of those nights, go back and view afterwards. But it's going to bless you because they have some great topics that they're going to share with us next week. Also, if you haven't heard the conversation with the guys, you need to tune in this Saturday. They're on every second Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's 4 guys talking about conversations only the guys can share.
All right, now.
And this Saturday, we're going to have, along with our usual men, we have Coach Ricardo Miller, Deacon Dan Smith, and Dr. Coach Kevin Wilburn. And we will also be having Pastor Broderick Clare from the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be talking about a man and his money. So you need to tune in Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's going to be real.
That's going to be real. Don't forget to get your copy of the book if you don't have it. You can look on the website and get your autographed copy if you like the Kindle version, Amazon.com. So again, Carol, thank you so much. I always enjoy these conversations. I love you so much.
I love you too, girl. You're my sister.
Yes. All right. So as you go on your way out there to being a better you, you will run into distractions, rough terrain, and detours. Don't let any of those negative aspects of your journey stop you. Though they may slow you down, keep going to be a better you so that you can build your best life. And remember, building your best life is our business. That's not a slogan. It's our commitment. We love you. Be blessed. Stay safe. We'll see you Saturday.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.